Tech Studio. As promised, we have another discussion around sustainability. Joining me this time around is Christina Herden, the Director for Sustainability at HCL Technologies. First of all, thank you for taking the time to chat with us. We always do appreciate it. This is a busy event, so any time that you guys are able to chat, we do appreciate it. I think, first of all, let's perhaps discuss what we're actually talking about when we talk about sustainability, because from, I guess, a cynical point of view, it seems like a box-ticking exercise. But perhaps you can elaborate on some of the key elements when we talk about ESG as it relates to the efficiencies of a business.
Thank you, first of all, for having me. I'm delighted to be able to share some of the experience that I've had over the last few years. I think what's becoming more and more important for organizations as they go on their sustainability journey is understanding how and what is ESG. And where does it play a part into the overall sustainability journey? ESG stands for environment, social, and governance. So the importance of these three factors are becoming more and more apparent. Organizations really are trying to scramble to understand how they can comply. When you look at governance, for example, there's a lot of compliance according to international standards. How can they transact? How transparent must the organization be? And then what are you doing around environment? What are your policies that you've put in place internally? How do you work from a social perspective? How do you treat your employees, your customers, et cetera? So it's becoming hugely important for organizations to continue to transact in any given country.
Mm-hmm. Just kind of building off of that, I wanted to find out your opinion as regards the South African and African context. It seems like sustainability is mentioned, but perhaps isn't being pursued or prioritized in the same way it is in other parts of the world. Perhaps this region has other things it has to deal with before it can tackle something like sustainability. Is that what you are seeing?
I am seeing that a little bit. What you're seeing, especially now in the last few months, globally, we're seeing a lot of standardization around reporting frameworks. How do you report? How do you position yourself as a company? And each country, of course, has their own laws and regulations. Now, in South Africa, what I am seeing is that there is a huge opportunity that hasn't been really grasped in how we can maybe leapfrog as a leader in the continent to really showcase what we're doing. There's a lot of information that is already happening around CSR. There's SED, the socio-economic development that companies have to participate in. But from a sustainability and ESG perspective, I think there's still an opportunity because people don't really understand, or organizations don't really understand the importance of frameworks and the importance of how you participate in these frameworks and how you have to change internally as a company by putting the right policies in place.
Yeah, I think as a journalist, I'm going to continue to be a little bit cynical because it seems like a lot of companies are quite happy to say, we are announcing a carbon offset program and that's it.
But how do you prove that?
Sure.
How do you prove that?
What are the kind of initiatives that you're seeing actually yielding dividends as far as sustainability is concerned?
So first of all, I keep harping on about these analyses and the reporting frameworks. I think they're very clearly defined as to how a company has to change in order to transact and in order to be compliant. So for example, you would find, or to receive investment from abroad, what you'll find is that if you don't have a human rights policy, if you don't have an environmental policy, if you don't have publicly available that people can refer to, analysts can refer to, journalists can refer to, investors and stakeholders, they all would have to refer to these kinds of policies. If they're not public, it already kind of gives an idea that a company is trying to hide something.
Sure, I'm assuming it's more that how do we hold companies accountable? They
Correct.
have announced initiatives, but what kind of happens after that?
So what we've seen, for example, from environment, I mean, climate and the planet is a big topic. What are we doing to reduce GHG emissions? And what I've seen is, especially for organizations that have huge data centers, what are we doing? Because that takes a lot of electricity, right? So you can start with ensuring that you have the right cooling methods in place, that you use renewable energy, that you have lower frequency blades that you run. Sure. So there are all these initiatives that can already be implemented today in South Africa or even in Africa. I don't see much progress with regards to using solar energy. We have 300 days of sunshine a year. give or take.
Yeah.
So we really should be using that natural opportunity to push and be potentially further ahead than some other countries.
I think you raised a good point there. What kind of role would, say, regulatory mandates then play as far as kind of keeping these companies accountable, but also ensuring that the right, I guess, industry standard is being kept?
And I think that goes back to, what are the regulations in country by country? And again, if a company transacts across border in different countries, in different continents, you have to understand what the local laws are. And many organizations and many countries will have these very clearly spelled out. And that goes back to helping a company to understand, okay, I need to move this. I need to ensure that my human rights policy is in place. I need to ensure that it has been validated and credited by a third party, like EcoVadis, like the GRI, like the UNGC, the United Nations Global Compact. Those are helpful.
Sure. I have been awfully cynical during our chat. What are some of the success stories? Are you seeing companies that are doing the right thing?
I am. And I think what really does help is being able to understand and being a little bit ahead of where a country is going with regards to regulations. It's an ongoing journey, it never stops. So I do see companies leapfrogging when they have these systems in place and when they have policies in place, because that means that they would be able to transact. A client in today's world is just as vulnerable as we are as a service provider. So if a client says, I need my supply chain to do this and this, you have to comply. Otherwise, you don't get the business.
Sure. And I guess to make sustainability stick for a lot of businesses, you almost have to show its worth outside of just being eco-conscious and stuff like that. How are you seeing businesses kind of leverage sustainability to kind of actually improve the business itself?
Well, I think, one thing or one area where it always hurts is financially. And if, for example, I just alluded to it, if let's say I'm bidding for an opportunity in Germany, and the German rules and regulations say that for any company to do business there must do these things. If I don't have that in place, I would not be able to bid. So there's a real risk of revenue loss if you don't have these policies in place.
All right. So I guess my final question would be, yes, sustainability is a buzzword. Again, taking the cynical view, what are your thoughts perhaps moving forward? Will it be taken as seriously as it needs to, especially in a context like South Africa and Africa in general?
I think so. I see that trend and that hunger for education and that hunger for understanding how to transact, and not only in South Africa, but across borders. I think I see that hunger coming over and over, and it's accelerating. As you mentioned, people talk about sustainability as a tick in the box. I'll just buy some carbon offsets. It's not that simple. So I do see companies, especially in the oil and gas industry and finance, really making an effort to align to these global standards and to be able to transact.
Okay, well, that is positive.
So it is very positive. It's an opportunity for us.
Well, hopefully, those companies are kept accountable. Perhaps we need to stop penalizing them as well if they're not meeting these standards.
And they will be penalized, again, from a financial perspective if you don't have these in place.
Cool. Well, Christine, we do appreciate the time you've taken to chat with us. I think, sustainability will continue to be a hot topic, and we'll likely be chatting to you again probably next year at the summit around this, and hopefully there have been steps that have been made.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.